Do you have a side gig? Are you thinking about hiring your children? Keep listening to find out the do's and don'ts of employing your children. Hello, and welcome to the Wealth Minded MD podcast with your money best friends. I'm Dr. Brittany Helford.
And I'm Dr. Leisha Taylor.
And of course, we're here to help you build wealth and make good money decisions so you can create the life you desire with more control over your time. It's that time of year where residents are graduating, Leisha. And one of the things that I remember doing this time of year is getting my own disability insurance policy.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's so crazy because I don't know about you, Brittany, but it wasn't something I wanted to buy. It was just something that I knew that I needed. One of the most important things that we should do as doctors is secure our income. And so we need to make sure that our high income as physicians is protected.
Yeah, and most physicians forget this step. They think that they're going to an employer that offers disability insurance, so they don't need their own independent policy. But let me tell you, no one cares more about your money than you do.
And oftentimes residents have access to these guaranteed standard issue policies or special rates and discounts that other people, even outside of training, cannot get. And so you want to make sure that you're going to somebody who can get you the lowest rates possible, as well as getting a tailored policy customized to fit your needs.
And Leisha, I found that PKA Insurance Group, Pradeep Otto, and Matthew Peterson, who are independent brokers and focus on disability and life insurance, have provided exceptional customer service to ensure that your policy is customized. They look through every single thing, and I really appreciated that there was no lapse in communication. They would allow me to ask questions and provided me with options from different carriers, and were really focused on what I needed.
Yeah, and they were efficient, honey, because look, I am busy. I do not have time to sit on the phone and do 20 Zoom calls. And so one of the things I really like is that if you're healthy with limited to no medical issues, approval is likely in 5 minutes.
Yes, there are discounts, as you mentioned, on disability coverage, and they can range from 10 to 40%, depending on your situation. So if you are someone who's not gotten their own independent disability insurance policy, then please reach out to PKA Insurance Group to discuss your disability or life insurance needs today.
Yep, and that's www.pkainsurance.com or call 1-800-258-1018, or you can email info@pkainsurance.com. Wealth-minded MD listeners, Brittany and I are so excited to let you know that our Negotiate Like a Boss Accelerator is now open for enrollment.
In the accelerator, you will learn what to ask for and the exact words that you need to say during your next negotiation to be successful and secure the bag.
Yep, that's right. Our latest client got over $15K more in salary, along with less clinical time. Wouldn't you like to do the same?
And Leisha, what I love about our program is that we have this practice session where we put our client in the hot seat as if she were actually sitting with her boss and negotiating. And what she said about that session, that it was the most effective for building the confidence, not only that this is possible, but that she too can be successful during negotiation.
Yep. She really did love it. And I thought it was great too to give her some real feedback. You know, you were the tough boss. I was the one providing the feedback. And I think it was really helpful for her. But she is not alone in that. I think it could be helpful for some of our listeners as well. And so if you are listening to this podcast, you are in the midst of a negotiation or thinking about negotiating because you're like, hey, I could use an increase in salary. I need to increase my pay. If you're having those thoughts, you can click the link in the show notes to sign up for our Negotiate Like a Boss Accelerator, and we would be happy to help you.
All right, Alicia, I haven't talked to you in over a week, which is a little wild given all of our WhatsApp messages. So tell the people what has been going on.
Well, I've been traveling a lot, as you know. I spoke at the American Academy of Family Physicians Health and Wellness Conference. I actually gave a couple of talks there. The conference was in Hilton Head, South Carolina, which I had actually never been to before. And a few days before the conference, I spent the weekend in Savannah, Georgia. And so I just had a really good time. It was my first time at that conference. couple days later, I left for Costa Rica to help celebrate my friend's birthday. So I have just kind of been everywhere. I am so tired. I really just want to like sit down and relax and not leave my house.
Well, I have been secretly stalking you on Instagram and I saw you on a raft rowing.
Oh my goodness. So I had not gone rafting before. So I rowed in college. So I know how to like row crew, which is like in a boat with multiple people with still water and you're racing. I had done that in college. So I do have experience like rowing a boat, but rafting is a little bit different because the water is choppy. You're going over rocks and you're basically maneuvering this boat over like choppy water and rocks and also trying to sightsee and look at nature and all those things. Also, it was challenging because the people at the boat with me had not rowed before. And so there were some basics of like, okay, we should all have our oars in the water at the same time if we actually want the boat to move, right? I didn't really plan on going rafting. This is something that my friend sort of sprung on me last minute. I didn't think I was dressed appropriately and I didn't anticipate being soaked from head to toe throughout the entire experience. We had, I guess, a lifeguard kind of person, expert in the back trying to steer us, and it was a whole mess. It was like, all right, go left, go right, go forward, go back. We couldn't quite hear. One person's going faster than the other person. We're trying to prevent the boat from tipping over, trying to prevent ourselves from falling out of the boat. There was just like a lot going on. It was a memorable experience, shall we say. My friend said, Alicia, would you ever go again? And I just looked at her and I said, maybe, maybe not. I did have fun. I guess that's a good thing. We did it in Costa Rica, so it's something I won't forget. Let's just say I'm not spending my weekends rafting.
That's really funny. I'm glad that you had that experience. I think you will reflect on it with your friends. The pictures definitely told the story, how you all look very cheerful in the beginning and then just see that the raft is starting to sink. I'm like, oh, they fell in. They definitely fell in.
Surprisingly, we were stayed in the boat. That was a miracle of itself. Now, there was a substantial amount of water in the boat. I mean, we might as well have been in the water because I was just as wet, because that's how splashed and wet we were. That's how much water was in the boat that you would think it must have tipped over. But no, it was an interesting experience, but memorable.
Very good. Yeah. I've only gone canoeing a couple of times, but no, we didn't fall in. And there were only two people, so it's easier to coordinate, you know?
Yeah. My Spanish is decent, but I wouldn't call myself fluent in Spanish. And so that was also a little bit of a barrier. My friend doesn't speak any Spanish, so she's relying on me. And I'm like, well, I think this is what they said.
Oh, so it was you and your friend in a raft with other people.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought you all were in the group and those were Spanish speakers who were in the raft. That is hilarious because I didn't think about the language barrier too. And as someone who speaks Spanish and I love the language, oh, that just tickles my soul.
I mean, throughout the whole trip, right? People are talking in Spanish and like my Spanish is decent. I can understand it really well. I just have a hard time kind of saying things back because I don't conjugate the verbs correctly. And I think people get the gist.
Well, it sounds like you had a really good time. And, you know, I love just living vicariously through you. I always get a laugh just hearing your experiences. So that is great. All right. So, did you make any money mistakes, any money mishaps on these trips?
One of my friends paid for the majority of the trip, and then we, of course, paid her back. And if I had to do it over again, I would have volunteered to pay for some of the stuff up front. You know that I like to pay for things with a credit card so I can get the points. And so it's just killing me to spend so much money in cash. I wish that I could have put that on a credit card so I could earn the credit card points. It's not really a money mistake. I think something that happens whenever you're in a group and people are trying to be as efficient as possible. Even when we like go out to restaurants, right? Oftentimes they may not want to split the check amongst so many people. So you have one person that's paying and the other people that are sending money. If I could think about one mistake, it was probably I wish I hadn't exchanged any money in the airport because so many places really took like American dollars. And so I really didn't need to exchange much at all into their currency. I kind of knew this before, but when you exchange money at the airport, they're charging you higher fees and you don't get as good of an exchange rate.
Mhm.
And so if I could do it over again, I wouldn't exchange any money in the airport and maybe exchange some locally at like a different place or maybe just keep dollars the whole time because I really didn't need the local currency for the things that I purchased.
Yeah, that's a good tip to reflect on because oftentimes we want to have that cash. For me, at least, when I travel abroad, I like the security of having cash because you never know what situation you're going to walk into and what the technology is going to be. But to your point, doing a little bit of research before about does that cash need to be American dollars or it doesn't need to be the local currency?
As physicians, one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that we secure our income because a lot of our financial plans are contingent on our high doctor income. One of the things that you will need to do is make sure that you get long-term disability insurance.
Now, Pradeep and his team at PKA Insurance Group have a reputation for putting people over profits and always doing what's best. Do not hesitate to email PKA Insurance and his team today.
They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
All right, Leisha, now we're going to move into our financial focus of the day. And I am super excited to discuss this topic because we must have mentioned it in a past episode that we were going to record an episode about how to hire your children effectively. But clearly, we did not record this topic soon enough because one of our listeners, I know you want to remain anonymous, so we're going to call you Dr. J. Dr. J wrote in and she said, "Hey, ladies, it's about time that you record that episode." So thank you for the push. And here is the episode on how to hire your children more effectively with all of the do's and don'ts. This is something that I have done and something that recently I have discussed with my dear baby Brooke. It is so funny the conversations that we have now, Leisha, that she's 6.5, and she will clarify that she is 6.5 and not 6 years old. She is so curious and she's just figuring out the world. Recently, she's like, "Mommy, why do you have to hire me for daddy's business?" And I'm like, "Girl, because we get a tax deduction." "Well, why are you always talking about taxes?" I'm like, "You're going to be talking about taxes too when you're a high income earner. You'll learn why this is so important." I have a couple of scenarios, Leisha, that I want to discuss with you today. And the first reason why we even thought about hiring Brooke in our businesses is because it gives us a tax deduction from our business income. It allows us to shift income from a higher tax rate to a lower tax rate. It allows our child to have earned income. And once they start to really understand the value of working, of making your own money, it teaches them responsibility. But when you do this, you have to do it properly. And I love to get your take on this as well as I conceptualize how to move forward because now Brooke will be turning 7. And so she's getting a lot older and can have more tasks and responsibilities.
I'm glad that you started with the endpoint, which is like why you're doing this. Because I think this is an idea that some people see on social media, have heard about from other people, and think, okay, maybe I should be doing the same thing, right? I didn't know that you could hire your child, or maybe they did know, but they didn't know some of the nuances. And they're thinking to themselves, okay, how could this be beneficial? And I love what you said. It's beneficial for me as the adult, and it's beneficial for my child. It's beneficial for you as an adult because you get to shift income from a high tax bracket to a lower tax bracket. And so that helps you pay less in taxes effectively. So it's helping you save money. It's beneficial for the child because it helps the child learn responsibility and those sorts of things, but also gives them the opportunity to have earned income. And as we'll talk about in this episode, when the child has earned income, then the child has access to certain investment accounts that can sort of jumpstart their wealth building journey. So it's like I'm saving money and it gives my child the opportunity to start building wealth from a very early age. Kind of helps me set them up for a future, give them this strong financial foundation that they can then utilize later in life. And so if it's beneficial for me and it's beneficial for my child, then it's like, all right, let me listen up, right? I can benefit, they can benefit. Obviously, you have 2 children. You're talking about your oldest, Brooke. Out of curiosity, is this something that you would do again? In other words, would you hire your youngest child, KJ? Would you hire your son for some of these roles? Or is this something that is sort of reserved for children who are a little bit older, let's say, in your case, 6 or 7 years old?
So that's a great question. And I think that takes us to some of the requirements that we have to consider when we're thinking about the benefits of hiring our child. So one requirement is that the child must be a legitimate employee performing real work. And when we first hired Brooke, we hired her through our company, Bramlin and Rose, which is a satin line hair accessories brand for women and children. So when Brooke was young, she was the muse. The reason why we started this company, because she had a bald spot in the back of her head that my aunt sewed headbands to cover up because I couldn't find anything on the market that I thought was cute and also safe. So she was the muse and a model. you can model whether you're 3 months old or whether you're 100 years old. So I could pay her at that modeling rate at a very, very young age. It did not require her to have a specific type of skill because she's a baby. I just sat her there, put the headband on, and took some pictures, right? As we think about her now becoming older, yes, she can still model for that business. There are other tasks and responsibilities that she can perform as an employee. She can read, she can open up mail and help me to sort things, she can clean. And so we can give additional tasks and hire her for other businesses that we have within the family. For KJ, he will also be hired in our business when he becomes older because he's not going to take a picture for you. I'm surprised he smiled for our family pictures this year. So I tried to get him to model. We were creating satin line hats for boys, but he would not model. So I cannot pay him through the business if he's not going to do the legitimate work. As he grows older, then he can do more things like Brooke. He can help us with other tasks in our businesses. And at that point, we will hire him as an employee.
All right. So as people are probably listening to this, they're thinking, ooh, let me get my kids on board, right? My kid can sort mail. My kid can take a photo. These are some things that I can get my kid to do. And they're thinking to themselves, okay, how do I set this up? What are the things that I need to keep in mind? And you do have the legitimate business. You have a hair accessories brand, right? You're selling products. But what about somebody who's listening to this who doesn't have that kind of business? Maybe they are starting a travel blog and they sort of help people book travel online and they write a few blogs about the places that they visit. Or maybe, I don't know, they do some paid speaking at different places, or maybe they sell things online. So somebody who doesn't have this big corporation or this big business, but somebody who is maybe has some 1099 income here and there, can they still hire their child?
Yeah, I think you can still hire your child. If you are making additional income, if you are a sole proprietor or have an LLC, despite what type of business it is, you can hire your child. You just have to think about the legal requirements. So, one, the child must be a legitimate employee. You just can't say, okay, I hired my child, but they're not doing any work, which I think is one of the things that people have tried to do. And this is why the IRS scrutinizes this activity in some regards. And I'll share a personal story about how Brooke was paid through our business for modeling. And I got a letter from the IRS to say, oh, I think this income was applied to the wrong social security number. Please validate that your child actually worked in the business and what task they specifically performed. So I had to sign that document and send that in so that they would ensure that that income that we sent or that she was paid really was given to her in the form of earned income. The IRS documents all of the money that we are getting paid. So that is one of the things that you have to ensure is that they are a legitimate employee performing real work and you can verify that. Then you must also understand that they have to have the appropriate documentation. So I-9s, W-4s, and that you have job descriptions for them, that you have time logs for them, and that when they are actually getting paid, you're not just giving cash. You want to create some type of paper trail to verify and validate that payment and that income.
So, okay, this is interesting. An I-9 is just that form people fill out when they first get hired. They ask them for a copy of their passport or their driver's license, sign a couple forms. That's easy. The W-4 just tells the government how much money you want to take out of their check for taxes. So that's pretty easy. A job description, time logs, right? How many hours are you working per week or per month and how much are you paying them? So that seems pretty self-explanatory. I have some follow-up questions for you. Some folks like me who have a single member LLC, we don't have any employees, or I don't currently have any employees in one of my businesses. It's just me. And because it's just me, I have a solo 401k set up. I set up a mega backdoor Roth. I've talked about that on a prior episode. But if I have an employee, all of a sudden, I can't have my solo 401k anymore. And so I'm just trying to think about what are other workarounds? Like, could you pay your child as an independent contractor, or is that not allowed?
You can pay your child as an independent contractor, and we can jump into some of the details about if they're under 18 versus over 18. But if they're under 18, there's a benefit to paying them as an employee that you don't have to pay FICA tax. You don't have to pay payroll taxes, Medicare and Social Security taxes for them. Neither do they have to pay the Social Security and Medicare tax. And you can avoid paying also that federal unemployment tax, depending on the structure of your business and the age of your child. So there are some benefits to paying them as an employee through your business if the business is properly structured. Now, money mishap, this is mama. I'm doing this for the first time. My tax accountant didn't tell me that I could hire my children and pay Brooke. So I decided after we had done modeling, oh, well, I'm going to pay her for that modeling session. And unfortunately, I did not pay her through payroll because I had no payroll set up. I didn't even know, like, how do I do this? And I just gave her a check. I gave her a 1099. And then when she filed her taxes, she had to pay self-employment taxes on that money, even as a child. So if you want to ensure that this is a way that you can pass wealth down and help them to keep more of their money, it would be best if you paid them as an employee.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry that you made that mistake, but it has benefited folks like me who are listening to you talk about it, right? And so, what I think I'm hearing you saying, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that when it comes to paying people, there's two main ways to pay somebody. You can hire them as an employee, right? You're my employee, which means I got to fill out that I-9, that W-4. I have to list you as an employee, those sorts of things. Or I can pay you as an independent contractor. I can give you a 1099 at the end of the tax year. And so for those of us who sort of work side gigs, that may be how we do things. Some of us have a main job where we're an employee, and others of us may make some money on the side. And when we make that money on the side, maybe that company, that business that gave us that money, they didn't take taxes out of our check, so they paid us as a 1099 contractor. What I'm hearing you say is, Leisha, yes, that's correct. You can employ somebody, have somebody as your employee, or you can pay them as an independent contractor. If you pay your child as an independent contractor, then your child will have to file taxes and then will have to pay self-employment taxes on that money that you gave them as a contractor. But if you instead hire them out, then you don't have to pay self-employment taxes for your child, and your child also does not have to pay self-employment taxes. And so you save more money, it seems like what I'm hearing you say, if you actually hire your child instead of just writing them a check from your business as a contractor. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. But then you talked about, hey, that means you have to pay them from payroll, right? And that's a whole thing, because if you are somebody who owns your own business, you probably don't even have payroll set up for yourself. The money comes in.
That was the problem.
You got a business checking account, you got a business savings account, right? And you think you're doing something, then you got an EIN number, you're like, I'm good to go. And what you sort of have to remember is that the moment you start having employees, it stops being as simple, because now you have to set up payroll and you have to pay them through a payroll system. So you can't just move the money from your business banking account, business checking account to your personal checking account and saying, I'm paying myself, or move the money from your business banking account to your child's bank account and saying, I'm paying my child. Like, it's not that simple. You have to pay them through a payroll system. And so maybe we should do an episode one time about setting up payroll for your business and those sorts of things. But it seems like you had to kind of go through that, where you had to set up payroll in order to pay your child through payroll in order to get these tax benefits.
Yep. And honestly, it wasn't as difficult as some might perceive it to be. I used a payroll service. I did not do it myself. So that service also has a cost. So when you're evaluating the benefit of hiring your child, and this is where I am now in considering how we might be able to offload some more of our income by shifting it to Brooke, is what is the cost of hiring her as an employee and what is the benefit of what we will be saving. And just with all money decisions, you have to really understand that calculus.
All right. So you said, hey, Leisha, it may not behoove you to pay your child or a child or someone in your family or whatever as an independent contractor, because then that person's going to have to file taxes and they're going to have to pay self-employment taxes in addition to any federal or whatever taxes on that money. But if you hire them out, then they save a lot of money in taxes and you still save money in taxes. And so now I'm on the train of hire your child. Got it. We're on that train. Got to do the legitimate paperwork. You said we got to make sure they actually have a task. I can't just like say I'm hiring my kid because the IRS going to send me a letter like they sent you a letter. So basically what you're saying is, Leisha, you need to make sure it's legit, because they're going to send you some paperwork and some extra documentation. All right, maybe I'm going to have my little niece model for me on my website. There we go. I can't pay them like $1 million to do that. I have to, one, pay them the fair share of what I would pay somebody else to do a similar job. So if my child is cleaning my office, for example, I have to pay them what I would pay somebody else to come in and clean my office. My child is modeling, pay them a rate that I would pay somebody else to model for me. And then I need to have that in job description and all of that stuff. So making sure that they're doing legitimate work. And then somebody, I'm sure, is wondering, what's the age limit, or how old do they need to be? It sounds like they can be any age, right? If they're modeling, they can be a newborn, it seems like.
Yeah. For modeling, there's no age, but the tested age by the IRS is 7. And because Brooke is turning 7 in September, we're thinking about how can we hire her for some of these other responsibilities through our business to offset some taxes. And so if your child is younger than that, then you might have to verify that they can actually do the thing. But I mean, even my 3-year-old can open up a piece of mail. He might tear a couple of envelopes and pieces, but he can open it up. He can put some things through the shredder, but the tested age by the IRS is age 7.
Okay. All right. And then obviously something to keep in mind is you can't pay your child more than you're actually making in the business. I mean, I guess you could, but then your business would kind of go under. And so you got to figure out, okay, how much money is my business actually bringing in? If my business is only making what the statistics show, the average physician side gig or whatever makes around 30 something $1,000 a year. And so you're thinking, all right, I can't pay my child 50 grand because my business isn't even making that much. Right. And so thinking about it strategically, all right, if my business is bringing in, I don't know, 30 grand a year, maybe I want to give my child 5,000 of that, right? What tasks do I think that they can do that would be worth me paying them 5,000? Maybe some modeling on the website, maybe some opening of mail, like you said, maybe some cleaning of my office. You said, Leisha, I just heard you. If you want to avoid some IRS issues, maybe wait till they're age 7 because that's when the IRS deems it kind of legit. Although you can start them earlier, just be prepared to get some mail in from the IRS people. All right, so let's talk about the tax benefits for you as the parent, because I think that's a big thing. You talked about earlier how we're shifting income from a high tax bracket to a low tax bracket or 0% tax bracket. Can you tell the people how this works?
Yes. So, as a parent who is a business owner, you are generating additional income. That income, depending on the business entity, is likely going to be passed through on your tax return and likely taxed, depending on, again, the business structure at your ordinary income rate. And so, for us as high income earners, we're about 35%. I would prefer for me to be able to pay my child and for them to possibly not even have to pay taxes on any of this money. And then what happens for me is that I get to deduct how much I pay them as a business expense. That means it reduces my taxable income for that year.
Okay, so let's use a real world example to make it crystal clear. Let's say you got a side business bringing in $30,000 a year. You're saying if you want to pay your child, Leisha, I don't know, $5,000, then all of a sudden you've reduced your taxable income by $5,000. So if your business brought in $30,000, you subtract the $5,000 you paid your child, now you only got to pay taxes on $25,000. So you were able to basically give that money to your child or pay your child and save that money from taxes. So the amount of money that you pay your child, you don't have to pay taxes on, is what I'm hearing you say.
Yes. And if your child is older, you pay for a lot of stuff when you got kids. Right? They have extracurricular activities. They want new Jordans, new clothes. They want to go on vacation, things of that nature. And so this allows your kid to own their money, but also you can use the money that you pay them through the business to pay for those things. So it allows for you to kind of shift expenses from being a personal expense that you're going to have to pay anyways, but to now a business expense because you're paying them and using that money to pay for those expenses.
Got it. All right. So what you're saying is also, hey, Leisha, not only is I don't have to pay taxes on the amount of money that I'm paying my child, but now I can use that money that I quote unquote paid my child to start charging them for some of the things that I used to give them for free. So now instead of me buying little Johnny some new Jordans, little Johnny's gonna buy his own Jordans from
That's right.
the money that I paid him. Teaches him a little financial responsibility, teaches him how to manage his money right. Now little Johnny's gonna pay for his own extracurriculars or his own trip to Europe or whatever based on the earned income. I got it. I'm following you. Okay, so let's talk about the money we're saving here because this is getting me very excited, even as somebody who doesn't have kids. Oh, let me ask you a question. Can I do this for my nieces and my nephews, or do they have to be like from my own body, my kids or whatever? Like, how does this work?
You can do this for your nieces and your nephews. You would still get the business deduction, but when you pay them via payroll, you will have to pay payroll taxes for them.
Wait, I still have to pay payroll taxes as the employer if I'm paying somebody that's not my own child.
That's right.
Okay, so nieces and nephews gonna have to hold on right now. Maybe this is just something that...
But you still get a business deduction. You're still shifting some income, but again, you got to make sure the numbers work out because otherwise you could just give them the cash and not have to pay the additional tax.
Yes, or do some other things for nieces and nephews. So it's okay, we're gonna reserve this for my own kids that don't currently exist. But anyway, let's talk about the taxes and the money that we're saving because I want to make sure that this is crystal clear because I'm trying to figure out if it's worth my time, again, for my future kids that don't currently exist. So when we talk about the different kinds of taxes that you're saving, right, we know There's federal taxes, there's state taxes, and then there's what we call FICA taxes. FICA taxes, also sometimes called self-employment taxes, are Social Security and Medicare. And of course, when you're employed somewhere, like I work at an academic institution, when I'm employed somewhere, I only have to pay half of that. So I pay half of the Medicare tax, I pay half of the Social Security tax. But when I'm self-employed and I'm bringing in 1099 income and I have my own business, I actually have to pay both sides of that. And so there's those FICA taxes, those self-employment taxes, aka payroll taxes, they're called different things, but there's that kind of tax, right? So we have federal taxes, state taxes, FICA taxes. When I'm hiring my child, they don't have to pay which taxes, or are they saved from all of those taxes? Can you break it down for us?
Yeah. So let's talk about the different types of business structures because this is really important. So if you have a business, say you have a single member LLC or a sole proprietor, or
Mhm.
you have a multi-member LLC with through a partnership, but your spouse is the other partner, then you can pay your child, hire them as an employee if they're under 18, and you pay no Social Security, no Medicare, and no unemployment tax on their wages. So it's a really simplified payroll process. Now, the problem is when many doctors, nurse practitioners are making a decent amount of money, and if they're taxed as an S corporation, then it's a little bit less tax efficient for hiring your children under 18 because you will have to pay payroll taxes and you will also have to pay those unemployment taxes. And this is really where I'm thinking about because we were considering hiring Brooke for my husband's business that is structured for tax purposes as an S corp. I don't know how beneficial it would be for her and for us to, well, I think it would be beneficial for her, but for us to actually pay those taxes by employing her under his business because he's a S corp. And that would be 15.3% plus whatever is the unemployment tax that we would have to pay for her. Her wages are, of course, are deductible, but those additional payroll taxes nullify the gains.
All right, let me make sure I understand. So, if you have an S corp, which some physicians do, or some people listening to this might have an S corp or a C corp or multi-member LLCs where the other partners in the business are not their spouse. So, if they're in that position, what I think I'm hearing you say is that the business has to withhold the employer side of payroll taxes on behalf of the child. Will the child also have to pay the employee side of those payroll taxes? Who's paying taxes, the child or the business owners, or both people are paying payroll taxes?
From my understanding, both.
Ah, I see. I see. Just to break it down, the different kinds of taxes, right? So if you hire your child and you pay them less than the standard deductions, if you're paying them less than $15,000 a year, they don't have to pay any federal taxes on the amount of money that they earn. So federal taxes, check, they don't have to pay that. What about state taxes? Does your child have to pay state taxes?
That's a good question. I think that they do, but I'm not 100% sure on that one.
Okay, question mark by the state taxes. And then payroll taxes or the self-employment, whatever taxes. If you have a single member LLC or it's just you and your spouse who own the business, your child also does not have to pay payroll taxes and you don't have to pay payroll taxes. So that I guess that's why it's beneficial, right? If you're paying them less than $15,000 this year, they don't pay federal taxes, may not have to pay state taxes, and they definitely don't have to pay payroll taxes. So we've saved all three basically of those taxes. But if you have an S corp, if you have a C corp, if you have a multi-member LLC that's owned by people other than whoever you're married to, they may not have to pay federal taxes, but they would have to pay payroll taxes. And so then you have to figure out, all right, is it worth it then? Because there's some tax that needs to be owed. So I see why this gets complicated. People listening to this are like, huh? Single member, multi-member, S corp, C corp, what? I got lost somewhere in translation. So the point of the matter is if the business is owned by somebody else other than you and your spouse, that may not be as beneficial to hire your child. If you own an S corp or part of an S corp, if you own a C corp, part of a C corp, it may not be as beneficial. But if you are the only person who owns your business, so you're just making 1099 income because you're doing some speaking gigs and you're selling some stuff on Craigslist or whatever, and you maybe have a website and you set up your own business, maybe you can hire your child to be a model on your website, hire your child to clean your office that's at your house, hire your child to do some other task, open up mail. So you can do that and it'll be beneficial for you and your child. No federal taxes, may not have to pay state taxes, may not have to pay pay payroll taxes. But if you've got any other structure, now you got to weigh the pros and cons because there may be some tax that's owed.
That's right. It's really important that you consider this because you want to make sure that the money that you're paying them, the deduction that you're going to get on the business, especially if you're an S Corp, is going to be greater than what you're going to be paying in taxes. So it requires a little bit of calculations here, but I think that it could definitely be worthwhile if that is going to be a huge deduction and to save you more money. Not only the tax savings, so that's one component, but also for this, my 7-year-old won't be hired at anybody else's business, right? At the age of 7, they can't. There are child labor laws, but I can hire them as a parent. And so it allows for them to have earned income. It allows for them to start building that financial responsibility. And it allows for me, because they have earned income, to establish a Roth IRA if they don't already have one and to invest that money in a Roth IRA. And if they're paid under the standard deduction, as you has mentioned, that they will not be taxed on that money. So this is literally tax-free wealth. And so you just have to think about generational wealth as well and how this might impact the child moving forward. I pay for a lot of things for my children. And so if I'm paying a little bit of additional tax that gives me access to a retirement account that my child will never have to pay taxes on that money, then it might be worthwhile for me.
I like it. I like it. And then I think one of the caveats we want to mention is that it's a little bit different for kids over the age of 18. We were talking about hiring your child, and we use child specifically because it's beneficial to kids under 18. But what happens if the kid is over 18?
So when the kid is over 18, basically they're an adult and you are hiring them like you're hiring any other type of employees, right? Regardless of the business structure, you will have to pay all of those payroll taxes. You will have to pay unemployment taxes as well. But again, it allows for you to take what you're paying them as a deduction. And so if they're doing legitimate work in your business and helping you to grow, then you should pay them for it. And you get to do that in a way that helps you to decrease one of your expenses.
I love that. One of the things I want to mention is you talked about unemployment taxes, which I feel like is not a tax that many people are aware of. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but unemployment tax is a tax that the business owner has to pay on behalf of their employees, right?
Correct.
And it's to protect the employees. Basically, if you end up firing the employee and that employee ends up taking out unemployment, that kind of helps to pay for the unemployment. And so most business owners are going to have to pay an unemployment tax on behalf of their employees. But from my understanding, if you hire your kid, you don't have to pay that unemployment tax. Is that correct?
If the kid is under 18, you don't have to pay it. If they're over 18, you do have to pay it.
Okay. And then I think something else that you said that I thought was really beneficial is what your child can do when they have earned income. Because I think a lot of parents are saying, okay, this seems like a lot to go through just to give my child money. Why don't I just pay them an allowance and make them pay for things that they want from that allowance, right? So why is it so beneficial for them to have earned income? One of the things that you mentioned that I want to make sure we don't gloss over is that when the child has earned income, instead of just income that was given to them as a gift, they can do different things with the earned income. And one of the things that they can do is open up a Roth IRA, so an individual retirement account for themselves, and start investing money in that kind of account. And the reason why that's beneficial is because that Roth IRA is tax efficient and tax beneficial, meaning it's going to save them a lot of money in taxes. They don't have to pay any taxes on the money that they earn. They put the money in the account. The money grows tax-free, and then they get to take it out of the account tax-free in retirement. So that account becomes a triple tax-free account for them, essentially, as a child. Right now, as of 2025, the maximum amount that a person can contribute to a Roth IRA is $7,000 a year. So if you pay your child $7,000, let's just say for 3 straight years, from the ages of 15 through 18, and you let that money grow and be invested over time, by the time your child retires at age 65, that thing's going to grow to like $1 million, right? Just 3 years of contributing the maximum to a Roth IRA. And so this is when you get these posts on social media that's like, make your child a millionaire, to help your child retire a millionaire. This is what they're talking about. Giving them earned income, putting that earned income into an account like a Roth IRA, letting that money be invested, keeping it invested over time. Even if they don't contribute anything else, if you just do that for a few solid years, you can help your child retire a millionaire.
Yeah, it just really capitalizes on the power of compounding interest and time. And Brooke, right now, she has about 8K in her Roth IRA. And I did the calculation, Sleisha. If she doesn't add another penny when she is 30, she'll have about 140,000 or something after 30 years, right? She'll have that amount versus if I were to do this, I think sometimes we wait until we are making more money or we discount the value of these small contributions. But if we were to start when we're 30 and we do that and we have to add significantly more money into the account to get less, if you're someone where there's an opportunity for you to hire your child, the impact of time is immeasurable for sure.
All right. So, Brittany, help summarize it for us. What if somebody is listening and they're thinking about, all right, maybe I'm going to hire my child, maybe I don't. Do you have a list of like do's and don'ts of hiring a child?
The first step is to confirm that they have age appropriate work. If they're young, of course, they can model, but really the tested age by the IRS is 7. And then you want to determine what a reasonable wage is. You can't pay your child $5,000 for taking out the trash. I mean, it has to align with industry rates. Once those things are confirmed, you have a solid job description for them and you can keep all the documentation. You want to set up some type of system of payroll. I've used QuickBooks in the past, I've used Gusto, either way will work. Then you want to track their hours and you want to pay them in a way that there is a paper record. So no more just keeping the money and giving them cash. You want to make sure that there's a transference of money from your account to their account and there's some type of paper. At the end of the year, issuing them a W-2 and having them file their taxes is also very important to document that they have this earned income. And then you want to teach them how to use the money wisely. And you want to open up a Roth IRA if you can.
Noted. And then just one follow-up question, Brittany, who does all this work? Because I presume that you're a busy person, but you're also super efficient and good with technology. Is there a system or company that you use to file the I-9s for your child, issue the W-2s? Like, how do you actually do the payroll system? Like, how do you actually set this stuff up?
Yeah, so I did everything in Gusto. I did everything in Gusto.
Ah.
And what I really like about it, not that they're sponsoring this podcast or anything, that you can upload documents into the portal as well, because sometimes you're like, oh, wait, where's that job description? Where's this? And so it helps you to keep everything organized.
So you just set up a Gusto account, paid for that, and then through that system, which is like gusto.com or something like that, you could say, I'm going to hire my child, put in your child's information, have the I-9 form, the W-4 form. Gusto will issue them a W-2, so you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I think you can also do payroll through Gusto,
Yeah,
right?
that's the reason why I got it, is because I could do the payroll through Gusto, right? And then they help to take out the appropriate amount of employer things and send you reminders. And then they also have very fantastic customer service.
Okay, I love this. I love this. You know, we probably should do an entire episode on different ways to like pass wealth on to your kids and the different kinds of accounts that we could set up for kids in order to help them build wealth. But I really do love this episode and us kind of breaking down the do's and don'ts of hiring your child. Thank you for all your tidbits. Clearly, you have a lot of experience doing this with your own child, and I will kind of utilize this in the future. So thank you so much for that. All right, now that we've talked all about hiring our kids, what is something fun that you are doing with money?
Well, recently we went to see Paw Patrol. Paw Patrol, be there on the double, Paw Patrol. Oh my gosh. Whenever you're purchasing these things for your kids, you know that it's definitely more fun for them than for you, but there's a lot of joy in seeing their happiness, right? And so they were singing the Mighty Pup song all night, doing the dances. So that's what I recently did fun with money, is I took my kids to go see Paw Patrol live. And it was really unique because there were huge dog puppets, but people were sitting inside of the puppet and controlling it. And I had never been to a show like that before. So it was really interesting to see the person controlling the puppet and singing for the puppet. It was a good experience. I think my kids enjoyed it. And that's what I've done. Fun with money.
I love that. Well, as you know, I just got back from Costa Rica, and so I spent a lot of fun money, probably way too much fun money. But one of the things fun that we did on this trip is we wanted a little bit of naturey outdoor outdoorsy, but we also wanted a little bit of pampering. My friend whose birthday it was, she's a very outdoorsy, naturey person, but she also enjoys the finer things in life too. And so we tried to blend the trip and do a little bit of both. I mentioned earlier that I had gone ziplining and that we'd done rafting. We also went to the hot springs. So we did like some outdoorsy kind of stuff. But then we also had like a pampering day. And that's when I spent my fun money. So we had the massage therapist come by and we each got a massage. They came to the villa that we rented and they gave us a massage. We got a Costa Rican massage, which I'd never heard of before. I guess maybe it's a Costa Rica thing, but it was like 90 minutes and got a massage and used hot stones. It was the whole thing. And it was really nice that they could do it from where we were. We didn't have to travel to them. And then we also had a private chef come in. And this was something that I had wanted to do for a while. And so it just really worked out for this trip. We rented an Airbnb. That's how we got the villa. And the Airbnb host had said, hey, if you want to have a chef come by, if you want to have a massage therapist come by, this is a company that I recommend. We looked at the reviews. It looked legit. And it was a great experience, particularly the chef. Oh my goodness. They decorated the inside of the house and we had these 4 courses and everything was really nice and fresh and just it was a really cool experience that I would totally do again. All of the food was amazing and that clearly was not free or cheap. So that is kind of how I spent my fun money, but it was a good experience. No regrets.
I love that. Having a little bit of luxury is so important for us. We work so very hard, and I'm so happy that you all got to have that experience. And girl, tell me, who did you call? Who was the chef so that when I'm planning my next trip to Costa Rica, it can be easy. I want to be traveling on easy mode. Just send me your itineraries. I don't want to have to think of it. I just want to book. I just want to pay. So please let me know.
I love this. One of the cool things about this trip is I actually didn't plan it. And so I didn't do any of the research, which I love it, right? Just tell me what we're doing, tell me how much I owe and who I owe it to. And so my friends actually planned it. They did the research and all that stuff. I'm grateful for them. Obviously, I trust their judgment. It worked out fantastic. We're happy to pass that info along. It was fantastic.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, people. So hopefully we gave you some tips on how to hire your children, to shift income, save a little bit on taxes, and also create pathways for generational wealth. Until next time, stay wealth-minded. One of the most important things you can do is ensure you have long-term disability insurance. Long-term disability insurance secures your income if the unexpected happens and you are unable to work due to medical illness, chronic conditions, or an accident.
Unfortunately, all insurance agents aren't created equal. Some of them are so focused on making a sale that they fail to reveal certain necessary information, tell you about discounts available, or clearly explain the process. Pradeep Bhatto and his team at PKA Insurance Group are different. They have a reputation of putting people over profits and always doing what's best.
If you need life insurance or disability insurance, reach out to Pradeep and his team today. They will help you get the insurance you need with the service you deserve.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Brooke. I'm recording a little disclaimer for my mommy, Dr. Brittany Halford, and her friend, Dr. Lisa Taylor. Just so you know, they're not financial advisors, tax professionals, lawyers, or financial planners. Everything you hear is for education and entertainment. It's not strict financial advice, So use your best judgment, chat with a tax professional, and all those other people that you need to talk to. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep cruising on your journey to wealth and wellness. Bye-bye.